Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. Bit of a different location this week. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for hanging out today. As always, we're presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca for all that great Calgary swag. We got the sweater rocking here today. You can see Stampede Wrestling behind me, sitting on what's definitely not a car seat, hanging out in my parents' office/spare bedroom here for the week, hanging out with them in Saskatchewan. So we got a lot to cover. It is baseball preview week here on Couch Potato Diary. We got a lot of NFL offseason stuff to go through as well. Raptors, NHL, the works. So a lot to cover. Let's get right to it. It is the start of the regular season in Major League Baseball this week, so it's preview time here on Couch Potato Diary, and the start of the season is a good time to take a wide look at the league and just see who's the best. So here is the top 10 list for the best players in Major League Baseball. It is another season and another chance to go over who we think are the top players in all of Major League Baseball. So let's get right into it. We will start at number 10, and he's high up there on a lot of lists, but I don't know if I've seen him on a few of these. But for me, it's Yoshinobu Yamamoto from the LA Dodgers. When you can almost single-handedly come in and shut down a team in a World Series, that's some pretty high-level stuff. And it felt like that's what happened with him against the Toronto Blue Jays in the World Series. And you can obviously tell that's not something that I enjoy saying, but he was so dominant in that playoff run for the Dodgers. And then to come in and shut that game down after throwing 96, 95 pitches the night before in Game 7 was truly spectacular, and that earns him the spot on this list here at number 10. At number 9, it's Garrett Crochet. This is surprisingly, and honestly, I was thinking about this, this is about as pitcher-heavy this top 10 has been in the 4 or 5 years that we've been doing this here on Couch Potato Diary. We're starting to get that point where marquee pitching matchups and aces are back, and it's a really exciting place to be. And so with that, number 9 is Garrett Crochet from the Boston Red Sox. I think you could have made a case that he could have been the Cy Young winner in the American League last season, given how Tarek Skubal kind of stumbled down the stretch for the Tigers. But another season of just pure dominance here with the Red Sox, and this guy moves into a different echelon, I think. But for now, a very, very good year, and I think well-deserving of being number 9 on this list. At number 8, it's Juan Soto. Probably has the skills to be a little bit higher up here, but this is more a statement on where everyone else is at than Soto. Still one of the, if not the most, probably not, but one of the most feared hitters in Major League Baseball. So you have to put him on here. Defense, not the fastest dude, but in terms of just being a pure all-around hitter, this guy is very scary. At number 7, it's Vlad Guerrero Jr., and maybe I'm overcompensating because I didn't want to be a homer, again, you can see, but I think when we do this list again next year, this guy is going to be significantly higher on here. I really do think that between the incredible playoff run, starting with just dismantling the New York Yankees, on through the Mariners series with that picturesque home run with the sun setting and everything like that, and then into the World Series, this guy leveled up, and then he carried that into the World Baseball Classic. If he can keep that going now through most of 162 and then another playoff run for the Blue Jays, then we're talking about one of the best players in baseball. We are already, but I think he moves up a tier if he can do that again this season. At number 6, it's Cal Raleigh, from the Seattle Mariners. MVP candidate last season, 60 home runs, doing it all. Just again, one of the more feared hitters in all of Major League Baseball. The only question is, can he do it again? At number 5, it's Bobby Witt Jr. I thought he was the best player in the WBC with what he was able to do defensively. It just felt like he took away basically an entire half of the diamond to himself. And so just defensively, he deserves to be on here. But then you factor in the speed, the batting, and everything else that he can bring to the table. And this is truly one of the best players in all of MLB. We'll get to the top half here in just a second, but just want to remind you that if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube, and hit that like button. Let me know where you guys disagree with me as we go through this list. At number 4, it is Tarek Skubal from the Detroit Tigers. It's insane to me that this guy is at least entering the season as we're recording this today in a contract year after some weird stuff with his arbitration with the Detroit Tigers. This is one of the most dominant pitchers in MLB. And yeah, it kind of went a little sideways toward the end of last season. I don't think that's going to be an issue here. He is obviously taking the season very seriously and is very deserving of being on this list. At number 3, another starter. It's Paul Skeens. Just plain and simple, the best pitcher in baseball. And if not for two superheroes ahead of him, could very much be on the top of this list. Just one of consistency, dominance, everything that you want from a starter. He's that. And then number 2, Aaron Judge. Defensively, it took a bit of a turn last year, but he was dealing with some elbow issues and everything like that. Made a couple nice sliding catches in the WBC and a good throw as well. But like hitting wise, there's no one like him. Best hitter in baseball right now and just incredibly feared until championship games. And number 1, forever and always, Shohei Ohtani. Starting pitching, apparently there's some talk that he's gunning for a Cy Young, and when he gunned for 50 stolen bases a couple of years ago, he got it. So we'll see what he can do on the mound as a hitter. Just absolutely incredible. When you just factor in the hitting, he's probably 1 or 2 on this list, and then you throw in a starter that they trusted in Game 7 of the World Series, and it really shows you the entire range of capabilities that this guy has. So where did I screw up? Let me know in the comments. I can't imagine I went 10 for 10. So did I miss anyone, or is the order shifted a little bit? Let me know in the comments. And if you're enjoying this from Couch Potato Diary, but you want it with you wherever you go, well, we have that. You can search Couch Potato Diary in podcast form on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. These are 3 players that I think are going to turn into some breakout stars this year. And all 3 of these guys have already broken out per se, but the star part, I think, is something to focus on here. I think all 3 of these guys have an opportunity to kind of jump another level here in Major League Baseball this season. At number 3, it's Jacob Misiorowski from the Milwaukee Brewers. Everyone was already excited about him pitching in the All-Star game. The stuff is obviously electric, but I think now another full season, him being the guy with the Milwaukee Brewers who are going to be in another race for the division title, this is another opportunity for this guy to show how good he can be for this Brewers team, and I think we're going to be talking about this guy in a much different way 365 days from now. At number 2, it's Addison Barger, and for people who wear the same hat as I do, this is a guy who has already broken out. He hits the grand slam in a pinch hit situation in the World Series, but he's really only in these spots because Anthony Santander couldn't stay healthy and now isn't healthy to start the season again. But you watch him in spring, and he is hitting the heck out of the baseball. He is an exit velocity king. And he already kind of went through his growing pains of, all right, the league has kind of figured me out. What do I have to do now? He's already progressed beyond that. Not that the league is just going to throw up their hands and, well, don't know what we could possibly do with this kid now. But I think that the big adjustments that he needs to make have already been made. This is a guy who hits the ball hard. He's athletic, turning into a pretty good defender. I think there's a very real chance we're talking about Addison Barger, the all-star this season with the Toronto Blue Jays. And number 1 is Elly De La Cruz for the Cincinnati Reds. One of the reasons we haven't talked about this guy as much is the Reds haven't been as relevant, but they're obviously making a push. They have a really good pitching staff out in Cincinnati, and this guy feels like he can be the real deal. And if he can put it all together for a team that's competitive this season, I think Elly De La Cruz finds a way into that top 10 players list for 2027, assuming a lockout doesn't get in the way. So those are 3 guys who I have my eye on, who have already broken out, but now can really make a push toward stardom in 2026. What do you guys think? Anyone else that's kind of on your radar? Do you think I'm overrating any of these 3? Let me know in the comments. And while you are there, if you're clicking on the comment button, it's just a little move up to the subscribe button and hit that like one as well. It's the chant that every fan loves to make, the overrated one at Major League Baseball games. So we're going into the start of another season. Who are the most overvalued, but let's be real, who are the most overrated teams in Major League Baseball? Let's take a look at it from the Vegas win total perspective. All right, here are the 5 teams that I think are being overrated by Las Vegas and the odds makers in the lead up to the Major League Baseball season. Coming in at number 5, it's the Cleveland Guardians. Vegas has their win total right now at 78.5. And look, I keep predicting that this team is going to fall off, and they keep not falling off, but I do think that there could be a bit of a tipping point here this season. Stephen Kwan, there's a bit of a thing with his contract and an extension and everything like that. If they end up moving him, I just don't think this team hits enough. Yes, the pitching's good. Yes, everything else, and it's a fairly well put together team. But in terms of being competitive, if they weren't in the Central, I don't think it would be close. So I think this is the year that it finally catches up to the Cleveland Guardians. At number 4, it is the Houston Astros. Their total is at 85.5. I know Framber Valdez could be a lot. Tried to drill his catcher with a pitch. Didn't try. Successfully drilled his catcher with a pitch. But he was still quite good. And replacing him with Imai, who was solid in Japan, but is far from a known quantity in Major League Baseball, and then not adding a whole lot anywhere else. I know the Astros have been able to keep it competitive while losing a lot of this talent, but I think it's starting to catch up to them, and I think this is another year where that happens. So I think at 85.5, I think they're being overvalued right now. Number 3, the Baltimore Orioles. 85.5 is their win total, and yes, off-season wise, they focused on the bats again, and this offense looks scary good. Adding Pete Alonso and Taylor Ward to an offense that already has a ton of talent on it is very good work. But this was already an all-right offense. And like some of the young kids didn't step up in the way that they wanted them to. So again, we're kind of baking in some best-case scenario from a lot of younger players on this offense. And then we're expecting beyond best case scenario from anyone in this pitching staff. Like Zach Eflin being the big ad. It's, oh, well then, I'm not as afraid of this pitching staff. And so, yes, they're going to outslug a lot of those issues. I just don't know if they're going to do it 86 times this season. So who are the top 2 most overrated teams in MLB for the upcoming season? Let you know in just a second. But just want to remind you that we do have a podcast with Couch Potato Diary. So search Couch Potato Diary, wherever you get your podcasts, whether that be on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your pods. Coming in at number 2, it's the Detroit Tigers. This one's a little karmic. When you have an arbitration hearing with one of the best pitchers in baseball and the entire baseball world is like, guys, what are you doing? I just feel like that costs you a little bit. I don't think they added to the lineup in the way that they needed to. There's a lot of upside with a lot of these players, but if there is any kind of a holdup with Skubal, like if it goes really sideways, they're trading him anyway. But beyond Skubal, like yes, Verlander is a fun story. Sure, Flaherty is good, but it's just not enough. And we saw this team kind of fall off toward the end of last season. I kind of wonder if that's a little bit more what they are, plus all the drama around Skubal with his arbitration and everything like that. I just feel like this is going to be a bit of an off year for the Detroit Tigers. And at number 1, it's the New York Mets at 90.5 wins. And maybe there's a little bit of bitterness with the Blue Jay fan in me with them getting Bo Bichette for a wild overpay. Offensively, this team is going to be really, really good, obviously, right? Top of the lineup with Lindor and Soto, and Bo Bichette is good. But then after that, like Simeon was available for a reason, and like Beatty and Vientos and those guys, it hasn't really clicked in the way that a lot of people were expecting it to. And then you factor in that you have a few guys who are playing positions they've never played before. I still think this is a playoff team. I think they're going to be a good baseball team, but I think there's going to be some growing pains early on in the season. So I think this is more a wild card team than it is a dominant division winner. So 90.5, just a bit too overrated for me. What do you guys think? I'm sure there's about 5 fan bases here that very much disagree with me when it comes to this one. So let me know in the comments, hit the like button and subscribe, and share this with your baseball fan friends. You can either mock a Mets fan or send it to one and rage bait them a little bit. Either way, would really appreciate it if we could share this video with some of your baseball fan friends. It is the start of the baseball season, and with that brings hope, optimism. But for a lot of teams, it also brings a lot of pressure. Here are the teams that I think are facing the most pressure for the 2026 MLB season. So yes, spring training is full of optimism and passion and all of that, but now that the season is just around the corner, I got 4 teams who are facing a ton of pressure heading into the next 162 games. At number 4, it's the San Diego Padres. Bit of an off year last year. They are perpetually aggressive when it comes to making trades and player acquisitions, but at some point you think it might catch up with them a little bit. The problem is they've made all these big moves, made all these big splashes, and the Blue Jays now have more World Series appearances in the last, since 1998? 6? 8? Either way, been a while. And the Blue Jays have more World Series appearances than they do now because it just hasn't clicked for them. So you're in the same division as Goliath. I understand that. But it does kind of feel like time is running out for the Padres to really take that next step here in the National League West. At number 3, it's the New York Mets. Yes, they are very aggressive in spending, and they have an owner who is very passionate about spending, but they also have an owner who's passionate about winning, and this team hasn't done enough of it. It was a terrible collapse last season, and now they've gone out and made a number of big moves to try to improve this ball club. If this doesn't work, the fans are just going to get more and more upset out in Queens. At number 2, the Philadelphia Phillies. This is another one where it just feels like time's running out. This is a core that everyone loves. They just mash the ball. Trey Turner sliding really funky and is very fast and all of that. It's a team that, unless you're in the division, it's very easy to get behind them. But we haven't really had the chance to get behind them in championship level games. And again, they've just run into a juggernaut that is the LA Dodgers time and time again. But time's running out for this group to really make that big push, that big championship run. And I don't know how many more cracks at it they're going to get coming up after this season. But at number 1, kind of perpetually, it's the New York Yankees. They have now gone a longer stretch of not winning a championship than they have in a very, very, very long time, if ever, with this franchise. And yes, it is really hard to judge a team just championship or bust, but that is the standard that the Yankees have set for all of our entire lifetimes. And for too often, it has been bust. And I know that there's a lot of fans out in New York who are frustrated that Brian Cashman just has a job forever, and Aaron Boone has a job forever, despite being the only Yankee manager to go this long without getting a World Series championship. This is not a patient fan base, and it's an offseason where they just brought everyone back. The pitchforks are getting ready out in the Bronx. This is going to be a good team, but they needed to be a championship team to bring some peace to the evil empire. So, who else? Did I miss anyone? We only did 4. Is there anyone else you think is under a lot of pressure? Or am I overstating how much these teams need it? Let me know in the comments. And make sure you hit that subscribe button and give it a like as well. If you're still watching, you obviously like it. So hit that like button, and just really helps the channel out as we continue to try to grow here on Couch Potato Diary. Let's move to basketball now. And it looked like the Toronto Raptors were starting to answer some of the questions that people had for them about that next step. They have, I would say, overperformed expectations so far this season. But now you belong in that tier. Can you do anything with it? And so far it seems like the answer is no. Again, looked like they were kind of coming out of it a little bit, but now they stumble back into it. Let's talk about a bit of a frustrating weekend for the Toronto Raptors. So, again, a tough weekend for the Raptors after, again, a couple of their better performances. One against the Suns about a week ago, and then the win over the Pistons. The 2 legitimate wins for this team that has been dying to get any kind of a win against any kind of a contender. And then the wheels kind of fall off a little bit. They had a great showing against the Denver Nuggets, but blow a double-digit lead. Fourth quarter issues plaguing this team again, and then they just get the bricks beat off of them by the Phoenix Suns. And so that's it keeps coming back, and maybe it's unfair, but it does keep coming back to, can this team compete with higher level teams? And the answer just consistently is no. Now, we were saying this about the Knicks last year, but the Knicks were much more of a proven commodity than the Raptors were. And yes, New York then goes on the run to the Eastern Conference Final. I don't think this team has that in them. And they are just showing it over and over and over again that they just don't. That there's no way you can say that they do. It was frustrating. It was really frustrating this weekend. A lifeless performance against the Phoenix Suns, and you can't afford to have that. I get it's a long road trip. They kind of poured everything into the matchup with the Nuggets on Friday night, I believe it was. And so to come out a little blah or a little flat against Phoenix, I guess makes a little bit of sense. But you can't afford to have those right now. The Philadelphia 76ers are 7th. That's the play-in. And they're half a game back of Toronto, who currently sit in 5th. And Toronto right now, like we said, there isn't really that, oh, wow, that's the matchup that's going to get the Raptors into the Eastern Conference Finals again, because they just haven't performed against these high-level teams. But if there's going to be any part of the bracket that's going to get them there, it's going to be facing Cleveland in the first round and then facing the Pistons in the second round. Both of those teams would be heavy favorites against Toronto, but I think that gives you a much better shot of getting through than having to go past the Knicks and the Celtics in the first 2 rounds of the Eastern Conference Finals. So they need to stay right where they're at in the standings to have any hope, I think, of moving beyond just the first round, and they're not going to do that with performances like that over the weekend. So you can't afford to be coming out flat in these moments and in these games. Brandon Ingram has been an amazing story for the Raptors this season. But that was a pretty putrid performance when the team really needed a bit of a lift, and they really missed his scoring, and they couldn't overcome it. Poeltl had a big night against the Nuggets and then was non-existent against the Suns. So that consistent nature against these high-level teams is going to cost them, I think, as we go on. Now, there were some pluses, and I think the big positive to take is the play of Jacoby Walter. 14 points, 4 of 5 from 3 against the Nuggets on Friday, and then 13 points on 3 of 3 from 3, and 5 of 7 from the field against the Phoenix Suns on Sunday evening. This was supposed to be what the bench was. And so in a year where Murray Boyles has been great, banged up right now, but it does feel like some of these guys haven't really progressed in the way that you would like them to. It is great to have someone like Walter coming in and just providing that spark for this Raptors team. And so it's nice to see him really start to heat up here for Toronto in big games where they need that spark and they need someone to step up in that way. But the problem is the bench was a bit of a liability in these two. And like the plus minus stats against the Suns, they got blown out by 100. So everyone's going to look bad in that. But they lost the bench battle to the Nuggets, who did a lot of work in the offseason and around the trade deadline to improve the bench. But that's not a team you're losing bench minutes to if you want to be competitive against them. And so this was supposed to be the strength of the Raptors, is you have the starters, couple of all-stars on the team, and just a solid group of starters. And then you have the rotation pieces behind you, these young players that can come in, and you can just 2019 Raptors teams to death where there's just no minutes played by bad players. But Grady Dick has not been someone that they can rely on this season, and now you're losing bench nights to the Nuggets. Can't happen. Cannot happen if this team wants to take any kind of a step in the postseason. So it's nice that one of them have stepped up, but it just didn't work this weekend, and that cannot happen for the Toronto Raptors. So how much, I guess, what are your expectations for the Raptors going down the stretch? Let me know in the comments. Like, is this just gravy? Am I overreacting to a team that wasn't expected to be just in a playoff spot, let alone a top 5, top 6 role? Let me know if I'm being a bit too harsh on them, or if you have the same concerns that I do. And of course, get Couch Potato Diary with you wherever you go. Just search for us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's head to the hockey world now. And good news and bad news for the Oilers. Good news, Oilers fans. I don't think your team's going to blow this. Despite injury issues and a bit of inconsistent play lately, I don't think your team is going to blow this playoff spot. The bad news is the reason for that is more what other teams are doing wrong and not necessarily what your team's doing right. Let me explain. So yes, the Edmonton Oilers have had many an injury issue and consistency issue and talent issue, but I'm here to tell you, Oilers fans, I don't think it's going to be a problem. Not not because of anything you're doing. I think they're going to run out of runway to blow this thing. You look at they got a huge win against the San Jose Sharks the night that Leon Draisaitl was announced that he was going to be out for the regular season. That was a monster win. If that one doesn't happen, then we are having really different conversations around this hockey team. But the good news for Edmonton is that everyone behind them also stumbled this weekend. And you look at the standings right now, and Edmonton still it's not comfortable, but it really does feel like just that one win against the Sharks is going to be enough to keep everyone off of them and keep them in the playoffs. So yes, huge break on the out-of-town scoreboard over the weekend. But the fact is, this team just isn't good enough right now. It does feel like it's McDavid against everybody. And they had a couple of moments against the Lightning, a couple of fun rush chances and all of that, but they lose 4-2, and one of the goals was put into Tampa Bay's own net by their own team. This isn't like insane breaking news or anything like that, but this team outside of McDavid just isn't good enough. And this is why the depth thing can really be a problem. No, most teams in the league could not sustain losing their second best player and be able to push like this. But you look at the injury issues that almost anyone else in the league has had. Last night, Tampa Bay, Hedman has had some major problems this season. Point missed a substantial amount of time to the point that he couldn't even make the Olympic team. They have been banged up. You look in the West, Colorado, relatively healthy, but Landeskog's been out for a little bit. Dallas has been missing Rantanen for a while. A lot of these teams have had injury issues, and they were in a much better spot than Edmonton is right now. And so this is example 10 billion of where the mismanagement around the bottom part of this roster has really come back to bite this team as they got whooped on by the teams coming through from Florida. So just not good enough right now for the Edmonton Oilers, but I just don't think that there's enough time for the other teams in the Pacific to really make them pay for it. The other part of that game is we should not be sleeping on the Lightning. And I do think that happens this time of year. We get so focused on the playoff battles, right? Where the teams that are just trying to squeak in, they get a little bit more of our attention. And then we're trying to find the dark horses, right? And that's why on radio in Calgary, I was talking about, hey, Montreal could be a cup team. And people are talking about how high can Buffalo get? And well, Carolina, I mean, you never know. Maybe this could be the year. And I feel like we're kind of taking how good Tampa Bay is for granted. And we are looking at this team and like, okay, well, yeah, sure. Like, yeah, we know they're good. We'll talk about them later. It's almost boring. This is a championship level hockey team. And I think you see that on full display against the Oilers. When you have a top line that is working as hard as guys like Hagel and Point and Kucherov, and all of those guys, Cirelli had a phenomenal game against Edmonton on Saturday night. And then Vasilevsky, he, not the toughest test at times, but there were some very good chances that Edmonton got. And Vasilevsky shut the door every time. Getting Hedman back, looking at this team, it's so well-rounded. They know how to compete. They know how to win championships, and they're showing it now. So this is just your reminder that this time of year we can focus on a lot of different things, and we can start to try to not just go with the sexy pick for winning a conference or winning a championship. Let's not forget how good this Tampa Bay Lightning team can be. And then the unfortunate news from the weekend is another issue with NHL player safety. And on this channel, haven't been able to talk about the Gudis, Austin Matthews thing all that much. Talked about it quite a bit on the radio in Calgary. But this AJ Greer one is inexcusable. Like the Gudis one was basically inexcusable. There's like 1% that you can talk yourself into. He hasn't really had a suspendable act in the NHL in a while. And the game moves fast, this, that, and the other thing. There's like 1% that you can do plausible deniability. I don't think you should, but there's like 1% of that you can. There is not one explanation for AJ Greer to do that to Connor Zary that makes that not a malicious, dirty, awful hit. Like, unless it's like, well, Zary told me before the game, because, former teammates, Zary told me that he's having trouble fitting on airplanes, so I decided to just make him shorter a little bit. That's it. It was right into the numbers, far away from the boards. It was so obvious of how dangerous that hit was. And now to only get 3 is inexcusable. I can't stand this at all. And like, it's such an, you don't want to think this way, you shouldn't think this way, but it's such an easy guy to make an example of, right? Like, he's a fourth line plug on a team that's not going anywhere this season, so throw the book at him. And at least when people are criticizing you again at some point, at least you can say, well, look, we really came down on that guy because we believe in player safety. They didn't even do that. They just bailed out AJ Greer for no good reason. And so, honestly, because this is getting a lot of the conversation, honestly, at this point, I hope it's corruption, because this level of ineptitude, this level of incompetence is shocking and startling and incredibly concerning. At least, like, briberies or in cahoots or whatever, I can fix that. This is a level of stupid I can't fix. So I hope that there is some kind of conspiracy going on, because the other alternative is just that they suck this bad at this, and that's probably a bigger problem. It's bad. It's bad. And the scary thing is, it feels like now someone's going to need to get very hurt before this gets taken seriously. Because remember, when concussions were starting to be talked about a little bit more and we were starting to understand that hits to the head equals not good. All right, we're cracking down on the blindside hits and the this and that, and we knew the name of the rule. I've forgotten it now, but we knew the name of all of that, and that we knew, okay, well, that's definitely a suspension. It is almost like, because there isn't that focus on one issue in player safety right now, that they're just like, yeah, there's nothing we really need to focus on, so nothing's really a problem. And it's not going to be taken seriously until someone gets really, really hurt. And that is a scary thought for players and for fans alike. It's so frustrating. And we've had 2 of the clearest examples of incompetence at this level in a really long time. So what do you guys think? Am I overreacting to this or the Gudis one? Let me know in the comments. Share your thoughts on how long you think AJ Greer should have been suspended for, and we can have a fun debate down in the comments there. And don't forget, hit that share button and share this with your hockey fan friends so we can keep the conversation going and grow the channel just a little bit more. Most of the big names are off the board in NFL free agency, so it's a pretty good time to just stop, take that deep breath, and let's take a look at the NFL free agency landscape right now. Who are the best free agents still available in the National Football League? I'll tell you. Here's our breakdown of numbers 10 through 1. Best available still free agents in the NFL. All right, so most of the big names already gone, but still an opportunity here to take a look at a couple of teams, or a couple of players here that could still make an impact in the NFL in the upcoming season. At number 10, it's Joel Bitonio. Look, it's a pretty good time to be an interior offensive lineman after the big contract the Raiders gave Tyler Linderbaum. Bitonio could really solidify a team's interior offensive line, a couple of different spots. By the way, if you're watching this or listening, later on this week, going to do the best free agent fits left in the NFL, and Bitonio had quite a few looks. A couple of teams really interesting with him. At number 9, it's David Njoku. I know the tight end spot, not the most valuable out there, but Njoku still has a pretty good skill set, I believe, and has not had the best quarterbacks to work with over the last little while. I still think his combination of size and athleticism, he's not a top 3 tight end or anything like that, but still just a really solid player that can be a very reliable target, whether it's for a young quarterback or the final piece for a developing offense to really become something dangerous. At number 8, again, always a crowd pleaser. On the offensive line, it is Cam Robinson. This is not the strongest offensive line free agency class. In the draft, it's a little bit spread out, although you're starting to see more people talk themselves into some of these offensive linemen. Cam Robinson could be an intriguing ad for a team out there. At number 7, it's Brian Robinson Jr. He was the backup for Christian McCaffrey last season, but just a couple years removed from being a very effective starting running back in the NFL. This guy isn't going to go out and get rich or anything like that, but he has a chance to really improve a team's offense. At number 6, it's Calais Campbell, defensive tackle. This guy has just, we've been expecting a fall off from him for 6 years now, and each year he just comes out and just keeps producing. He's not going to be the best player on a championship level defense or anything like that. But if you need someone to improve your defensive rotation with guys in the middle, or if you have a really strong edge game, need something down the middle, Calais Campbell can still be a very solid piece for a defense. At number 5, again, it's Rasheed Walker. Again, just looking to improve things on the offensive line. Everyone loves offensive lineman talk, right? But I think Rasheed Walker can certainly help out a team. At number 4, it's Kirk Cousins. Maybe there's a bias here with him being the best quarterback that is still available, but I still think there's a little bit there in Kirk Cousins. Probably not going to be next year's Sam Darnold or anything like that, although no matter who signs him, that piece is going to be written. But there's still some bad quarterbacks out there that he is better than. So I guess there's that. Number 3, it's Deebo Samuel. I'm going to hold on to the thought that there is still something really dynamic there with Deebo. I have always kind of overrated him a little bit. I'm aware of that. I know that. But I think when you're looking at a guy who, like, he's not going to love getting it out of the backfield as much as he was out in San Francisco, but is impossible to bring down, is a pretty reliable target when he is out there, that this is someone who I think can really level up an offense. At number 2, it's Taylor Decker on the offensive line again. I think this is someone who could be a pretty genuine difference maker to a team's offensive line. And we saw throughout the regular season last year, there are a lot of teams that still need those difference makers on the offensive line. So Taylor Decker, I think, is going to be one of those signings that we look back on and, man, can't believe that took into March or April for that to get done. But at number 1, so excited I'm throwing things. It's Juwan Jennings, the wide receiver formerly of the San Francisco 49ers. I don't know if he's as good as he thinks he is, but this is someone who can be a pretty dynamic force on an offense. I don't think he's a number 1, but I think he's a pretty solid number 2 on a good team and in a good receiving room. So I think he is someone that can be a big boost to a team on offense. What do you guys think? Do you have a problem with the order? Do you have a problem with me leaving anyone off? Let me know in the comments and we can debate it down there. And let me know who your team is and which one of these guys you hope that they sign. And we can keep the football conversation going down in the comments. And of course, while you're there, make sure you hit that like button and hit the subscribe button so we can continue growing things here with Couch Potato Diary. The road to WrestleMania took a not unpredictable, but certainly interesting turn, with Randy Orton aggressively attacking Cody Rhodes. So how would the WWE follow it up? Let's break down edition of Friday Night Smackdown. So yes, it is the road to WrestleMania, and Randy Orton had some explaining to do on SmackDown, and I think he did okay. It's tough because you can't just come out and say, yeah, we needed him to be a bad guy against our really good guy, so we did this. But we've done this with Randy Orton 1,000 times. I think he is way better as a heel than he is as a babyface, but I also am aware that we are at a point where people are going to want to cheer him. So I think the reasoning had to be pretty aggressive. They're also telling this story of there being this guy in his ear or someone like that, like a genuine voice in his head, not just the Rev Theory ones. So they're trying to mix a couple of stories together here, and I don't know if it's really worked necessarily. Now, I don't know if it really needed to. You have the visuals, and you have a fan base that's just like, yeah, okay, it's Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes. Cool. But to kind of take it to that next level, that Mania level, I think the reveal that whoever he's talking on the phone with, I think that kind of needs to be a big one. And we've seen WWE take some shots with reveals and stuff like that, and maybe initially it doesn't go well, although admittedly Danhausen's nailing it since. But you are not just competing with, oh, well, it's this, that, and the other thing. You're competing with the wildest imaginations in fandom in professional wrestling fans. So I am hoping that this can really deliver and take this feud to another level. Because I do think it needs it for Mania main event. We know these guys are going to deliver. And Randy, he is fine in this. It's just the story that isn't necessarily there. And then the kind of back and forth of, oh, no, you're right, Jelly Roll, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, it's Zach, I'm sorry. Oh, no, you're not. Boom, kicking the balls. I get what they're doing. It's just, it hasn't really locked me in just yet. Otherwise, the show was kind of blah. Like, again, like Drew against Fatu, the finish made it so lame where they're falling off of the thing. And if this is 1980, then yeah, that's a cool finish. But it's so obvious that it's just onto a crash pad and all of that, that it takes you out of it almost immediately, right? Like it becomes almost like eye rolling at that point and lame professional wrestling instead of, oh, we shoot movies here, pal. Like there's a way to do that can up the drama, and I'm not saying, oh no, they should have actually fallen off of a sign onto concrete, because that doesn't end well for anybody. But if you can't make it look good, then don't do it at all. And this was a don't do it at all thing. Unless you're setting up some grand spot for off of the stage at WrestleMania, then this is just an eye-rolling thing that kind of takes a lot of people out of it, which is too bad because I thought the rest of the build-up was pretty good between Drew and Jacob Fatu. Aleister Black, Sami Zayn, Trick Williams kind of just did the same thing as we've seen for a little bit. Trick is always entertaining. Aleister and Sami are always going to deliver in the ring, but it wasn't exactly a progression of much here. And that's kind of what a lot of this show was just not much progression of anything from SmackDown. And like the Michin B-Fab turn on Rhea, I've said before that, oh, well, everyone saw it coming, isn't the best reason to not do something. Because sometimes the reason we all see it coming is because it's the right thing to do. That is not the case here. This makes no logical sense to have Michin and B-Fab jump Rhea Ripley just because Rhea was nice to them after Michin lost to Jade Cargill for the 150th time in a row. Again, we all kind of figured this was going to happen, but you need to do that in a way that makes any sense at all. And I don't think there is one explanation that is going to make that make a lick of sense for anybody going into WrestleMania. And right now, that build also has kind of flatlined. Like they have an interesting card, but a lot of the build is just, yeah, we know you want to see these, so we're just killing time till WrestleMania. That's it. But yeah, like Jade and Rhea, the whole thing has just been, I'm that bitch. Well, no, I indeed believe that I am that bitch. So we will see whose bitch can bitch the most at WrestleMania. Like it's just, there's been no progression to it at all. And that is, again, kind of the theme of this SmackDown. Now, there were some highlights on it. Carmelo Hayes, Ilya Dragunov, I thought was really, really, really strong. I like these two, incredible chemistry. The U.S. Open Challenge has delivered fantastic matches on a weekly basis and continues to be the standout of the 3-hour SmackDown era. Priest and Truth winning the tag team titles. It's okay. Like, you have such an exciting tag team division. This does feel like a step back, and like I find Truth to be entertaining. I think Damian Priest can be a little bit too hated on by the IWC a little bit, and there's like he is a fine person to have hanging around the world title picture, but it's just like we haven't seen the Street Profits in months, and we've barely seen any of these teams in months, and now we're throwing these guys in as champions. It just is a bit of a when you have so much talent there in the division. But at least it looks like we're going to get, word of the day, some progression in the MFT's Wyatt Six feud that has been taking forever to do anything. So at least we got a little bit of that. But yeah, although sticking in the tag team division, Fraxium and MCMG, oh my God, a great match there. And now a little bit of intrigue and, say it with me, progression with Candice LeRae coming down and helping the Machine Guns get that win. A lot of people are just assuming that Gargano's contract is going to be up soon and he is going to be on the first flight to Jacksonville to head to AEW. But could there be some kind of a faction brewing with this group? And it's one thing both companies have had a bit of an issue with is when something is established from outside, it's okay, no, we're just going to throw it in there and people know it, so we're just going to go with it. And story, what story? Whatever. They don't really adjust it all that much. Like Bullet Club, those guys are just Bullet Club for forever. And these two wrestled in Ring of Honor once, so that's them now. That there isn't a whole lot of change in characters or dynamic with anything. So it's nice to see them maybe adding a little bit of their own flair and their own evolution to something that came from the outside world. A very good thing that came from the outside in the Machine Guns, and Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano as well. But adding a little bit of just something different to a what could be a pretty good package in that group. So again, overall, it felt like an episode we needed to get through to get to the next step for a lot of these things. It feels like with a lot of these stories, we have 3 ideas left and 4 shows to do. that's kind of where they were at. It felt like right now with this show. So some fun stuff, but I don't think it was worth 3 hours of any of our time on Friday. So what did you guys think? Am I being too harsh? Excuse me. Let me know in the comments, and we can chat about that. But yeah, right now I think SmackDown, it has been for a while, but in just kind of a bleh phase. Let me know if you disagree with me. Also, if you're a wrestling fan, with listening to the regular Couch Potato Diary, well, we've been a while into this show. Before we got to the wrestling talk, there's a podcast where you can just get my wrestling thoughts, and that is the Living Room Lariat. Search for that wherever you get your podcasts.